Hi, my name is Philip Berry, and I'm an organizational effectiveness consultant and executive leadership coach. We started Philip Berry Associates in a desire to help individuals, teams, and organizations to transition from their present levels of performance to higher levels of capability. We founded the company because after years working in different organizations, what I wanted to do was to have the freedom to be able to provide a number of the programs and initiatives that I know work to a number of different organizations in different settings. And so it was time for me to put all of those into a practice that would enable me to be more strategic and also more impactful. We help our clients by assessing their levels of present performance, trying to understand what they need to do differently as they transition to higher levels of impact. And those levels of impact can be in the workplace, it could be in the workforce, and also it could be in the marketplace. Furthermore, what I have found is that if you really want to be more strategic and impactful, you need to be able to have individuals focus on the data that helps them to understand what they're doing well and also what they can do differently in a number of different sectors. The skills that I have developed really start with, first of all, assessing how you can move from one level in the organization to another. That level could be, first of all, understanding the depth and breadth of a particular function. I decided early on that I wanted to be in the business of helping to improve human capability and people effectiveness. And so I chose, first of all, the area of human resources to do that. In order to really be proficient in that area, I needed to learn all of the different aspects of human resources, from compensation to labor relations to training and development, to diversity and inclusion, and also policy development. But that wasn't all that I needed. What I needed to also understand is how can I be effective not only in one industry, but can I take those skills and apply it to other industries? So, for example, I started out my profession in the computer industry working with IBM. But one of the things that I found over time is that I also wanted to be able to provide skills in dealing with social justice and helping organizations and communities to improve. And so I moved from there to the Urban League, where I was able to develop a number of programs that helped me to better understand how you can impact and improve communities and also to improve the standard of living of people. But over time, I found it was important for me to go back to the corporate sector. And in the corporate sector at Procter & Gamble, I was able to not only work as an organizational development consultant and do training and leadership development and do that in the United States, I wanted to also understand how can you do this in a number of different countries. And so I started by looking at Latin America within Procter & Gamble at that time, and I developed leadership and motivational training, which helped people in Mexico and in Colombia and Brazil and Peru. And that gave me a great understanding of how to work cross-culturally. That wasn't really where I wanted to stop. After I left Procter & Gamble, I went to another industry, the computer industry, which I started at in the beginning. And that was in Digital Equipment Corporation, where I was able to develop a full understanding of how can you work in the data processing area with the type of skills that I had. And then I decided to go back to the consumer products area with Colgate-Palmolive. And when I was working with Colgate-Palmolive, I started in the U.S. company. And then I raised my hand so that I could work in the emerging markets. And the emerging markets consisted of looking at those countries where that had just been liberated, by the fall of the Berlin Wall. And so there you're talking about Romania and Poland and Czech Republic and Hungary. And I worked with a group of professionals, and with those individuals we were able to see how we can develop full-fledged subsidiary operations that were in those countries, and also how could we provide services in the markets that existed there. So in order to do that, myself, a team of marketing and manufacturing people, and we decided that we would either do it through developing a greenfield operation or doing a merger or doing an acquisition. And that really fortified my skills in terms of understanding the full business focus. I wanted to understand other aspects of the emerging market, which is different from, if we say that the emerging market is newer countries outside of the United States and out of the UK and Canada, but there are other countries that need to develop, and we needed to develop operations and programs and functions and levels of effectiveness that would enable those individuals in those countries to be very impactful where they were. And so part of the emergent market also consisted of looking at Africa and developing full-fledged subsidiaries in those operations. And so there we're talking about South Africa and Zambia and Zimbabwe, and going further up the East Coast where you're looking at Tanzania and Kenya, and then going over more to the West Coast where you're looking at Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria. But those were important places to understand. And furthermore, what we wanted to do was to see how we could develop a way of understanding the Middle East and understanding how to operate in Saudi and how to operate in Turkey. And how to operate in Egypt. And so I developed a number of skills in those areas that really have enabled me to look at organizations and look at people not only in the United States or in the quote-unquote developed world, but also in other countries. And understanding the cross-cultural element that's involved as you're looking at developing leaders, as you're looking at talent development, as you're looking at recruiting people, and also as you're looking at how you can create teams to make those individuals and those companies function more effectively. When I think about the technologies and trends that are taking place, there are two areas that I think of that are impacting us now and will continue to impact us in the future. First is understanding that with people, you have different dimensions that people operate out of from the standpoint of their gender, and from the standpoint of race or ethnicity or gender identification, age. And individuals who are who come out of any one of these distinct type of diverse settings will think and bring some different understanding to the workplace, and also they bring up a different understanding about the marketplace and how you can function there and how you can work together. And organizations that don't understand this are going to be left behind, because those diverse classifications is not something that's going to disappear. It's always going to be with us no matter what. And so what we want to do is to be able to understand, with all of those distinct diverse classifications, how can we involve people? How can we create a company that is going to be more enlightened? How can you create a workplace that is going to motivate people in a number of different ways? The other issue that is coming up right now has to do with AI. People think that AI is something that's really new, but in fact, there have always been changes that have been coming about over the years, from the time you developed the car and had that replace a lot of the horse buggies. Yeah, and people said, well, boy, this is really going to change the character of our neighborhood. But what happened is that we adapted to that. We have adapted to a number of the changes that have taken place over the years, even with social media. We have found that if we don't understand social media and understand the internet developed in a way that gave us a lot more information and also challenged the way the assumptions that we made and challenged the decision-making processes. Well, that's what AI is doing. And so what we need to do is to take on some of the principles that I would say Alvin Toffler, who was a futurist, said. And so he said that we have to be always in a situation where we are learning, unlearning, and relearning. And that's a constant state that people need to be in. Even though I have 2 master's degrees, one from Columbia and one from Xavier University of Cincinnati, but I started my education in community college. And I went further into my education at Queens College, and both of those were part of the City University of New York. Well, one of the ways that I give back is by being associated with organizations and that help to improve the lot of individuals who are trying to develop and get a heads up on life and on their profession. More specifically, what I did with the City University of New York, with my volunteer work there, I moved through the organization on a volunteer basis so that I can be the vice chair of the Board of Trustees for all 25 colleges that were within the City University system. And one of the things that I found most enlightening was being able to associate with student groups, to speak to different student groups, to participate in as many graduation exercises as I could. So that way I could understand what people's dreams are, and also that I can motivate them to tell them what's possible from wherever they are. You can start here and you can go anywhere. And that's one of the things that's so important about giving back, that I don't just keep the information for myself, but I try to share it as much as possible with people who have come up the same way I did and who are looking to go beyond. One of the plans that I have for the future is to continue to help people who are trying to improve their performance and who are trying to improve their level of living and standard of living. And that might be in the United States. It could also be in other countries. And so organizations that I can volunteer with, that I do volunteer with on different boards, and also community groups and student groups that enable one to do this, that's really how I see those are the goals and objectives that I see continuing with, and that will develop a platform for my further development because I find that in giving you get a lot, and I find it to be extremely rewarding and enriching to be able to do this. Outside of work, one of my most significant endeavors is some work I'm doing with the Louis Armstrong House Museum. So Louis Armstrong is one of the jazz pioneers, and with the board of directors, which I'm sitting on, what we have done, we were able to house over 600 archives of a lot of his music and writings, so that way people can learn from it. And so in doing this, we find we're able to offer classes to individuals in music who really might not be able to afford to buy a musical instrument or go to school for that, but we can provide that type of training. And also for young individuals who are artists, who are looking to learn a lot more about how to improve their craft. We have a number of programs which are geared to them, so that way they can learn more about Louis Armstrong and his music and take that music to the next level. We call it Louis Armstrong Now. Music is one of the areas that's extremely important to me. I love the arts, period. And in fact, there are a number of art organizations that I have participated in that focus on jazz and dance and artistry. And so I like to be involved with those on a part-time basis, and I go to at least 2 jazz cruises a year, so that way I can continue to learn and grow in that area. I was the Vice President of Human Resources for Colgate-Palmolive Europe. And it was one thing to travel to the 60 countries that I was working in before in other divisions and throughout Latin America and throughout Asia and throughout Africa and Eastern Europe and also throughout Russia. But living somewhere, you really gain a completely different and enriched perspective about what's important to people. You understand a lot more about the marketplace that they operate in. You understand about their dreams, their aspirations, their fears. That taught me a whole lot. And I've been able to use that understanding to help me look at the world in a cross-cultural manner, to be a true global citizen. And in fact, when I look at my children and their spouses, the grandchildren that we have, all of them, they speak a few languages as I do. I speak Spanish and French, and I learned a few words in a few other languages, just so that I could be proficient in understanding that people around the world don't just speak English. They speak out of their own personality, their own nationality and ethnicity. And in order to really understand people, you have to walk in their moccasins for a while. Some of the events that have personally affected me and that I participated in and that have furthered my own growth and development has to do with the fact that I grew up in the late 60s and early 70s. And that was a time of social engagement, understanding civil rights, understanding that there are a number of values that we need to be concerned about with people. We need to understand about climate and understand about hunger and things like that that are based on the development of people in their own localities. And so when I was in college, I was a student leader. And as a student leader, I was involved in helping to raise the awareness of a number of students and also administrations in those schools, so that way they would be able to develop policies and programs that were going to take into account a much broader, enlightened understanding of what it means to be an effective student and an effective citizen in the world. I would say that my experience during that time has fortified and also shaped the way I have approached my work. It shapes the way I have made a change in developing organizations, and also when I look at the type of work and what I want to do right now, what I'm doing right now, it really shapes the perspectives that I bring concerning how you can help people improve and move from their present levels of performance to higher levels of capability. The way I have benefited from the products and services of Marquis Who's Who is that they really provide a number of services that help you to reach out and get the word out. They help you to market yourself. And they also provide videos and writings and newsletters, and they provide a rich network that you can tap into, so that way you can continue to move your brand forward and develop your skills. It will provide a vehicle for me to be recognized even further than the way I've already been recognized for a number of the activities that I've been involved in. They're a widely respected organization. I mean, they have domestic, U.S. and global reach, and I like the fact that my name and some of the things that I do can be brought to others who also are concerned about some of the things that have made me and enriched my life.